everybody, welcome to Tavern Talk by Initial Reaction. I'm Philip, and instead of doing a new review of a new release this week, we are going to count down my top 10 most anticipated releases for the fall movie season. If you don't know, summer movie season is kind of coming to an end. The fall movie season is about to kick off with September through to the end of the year with all the holiday releases. And per usual, there is a lot to look forward to this year. But how I decided to do this list was kind of the scenario of if I could only see 10 more movies the rest of the year. If I could only pick 10 movies to see the rest of the year, these would be my 10 choices. Of course, there's a lot of stuff coming out that I want to see that I'm excited for and interested in. I mean, you have a new Terminator movie where Linda Hamilton is back. You have a new Jumanji movie. You have Frozen 2, Zombieland 2, all kinds of big fun event movies that are no doubt going to be a lot of fun to enjoy. But I don't know if those would necessarily make this list of movies I just would absolutely want to see if I couldn't see anything else. So with that jumping off point, before I get into my actual top 10, I want to kind of highlight some of those releases that I'm also excited for, but that maybe didn't quite make my top 10. So beginning with Hustlers, it stars Jennifer Lopez, Constance Wu, Julia Stiles, Keke Palmer, Lily Reinhart, Cardi B, Lizzo, a whole roster of big names. It's directed by Lorene Scafaria, and it is based on a magazine article, so kind of one of those outrageous true story tales. We also have Ford vs. Ferrari starring Christian Bale and Matt Damon. It's directed by James Mangold, who did Logan, 3:10 to Yuma, Walk the Line. Also, one that was really close to making my top 10 but just didn't quite cut it. I also have Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, stars Tom Hanks as Mr. Rogers. It comes out over Thanksgiving, and obviously, you know, Tom Hanks is in it. Something you're going to want to see him doing another biopic, and I am very excited for it, but just didn't quite make the cut either. You also have Greta Gerwig's adaptation of Little Women that comes out around Christmas. Coming on November 15th, you have a new version of Charlie's Angels. It's directed by Elizabeth Banks and stars Naomi Scott, Kristen Stewart, and Ella Balinska. So something kind of curious about that one. Then after that, you have Lucy in the Sky. It stars Natalie Portman. It's the directorial debut of Noah Hawley, and she plays a real-life NASA astronaut. There's Ang Lee's Gemini Man, starring two Will Smiths. So looking forward to that. The guys who wrote The Hangover and directed 21 and Over are back with a movie called Jexy. It stars Adam Devine, and looks like a pretty high concept broad comedy that I'm more curious about than necessarily interested in, but we'll see how it goes. And then of course you have the sequel to The Shining. Director Mike Flanagan, who brought us The House on Haunted Hill on Netflix this year, directs Dr. Sleep. And then at the tail end of the year in December, we have Sam Mendes returning. Sam Mendes directed American Beauty, but he also did the last two James Bond films, Skyfall and Spectre, and he's back with a World War II film titled 1917. So those are some of the high-profile releases that are dropping this fall, this holiday season, and definitely a lot to look forward to there. But there's also a lot of smaller releases coming out through to the end of the year, and would like to highlight a few of those as well. A lot of these I would have loved to include on my list, but you know, there's 10 spaces, there's just not enough room. First one is Jojo Rabbit. It is from Thor Ragnarok and Hunt for the Wilder People, director Taika Waititi. You also have The Lighthouse, which is Robert Eggers' follow-up to The Witch. It stars Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe. You have Bong Joon-ho's follow-up to Okja and Snowpiercer, Parasite. You have Kevin Smith returning to his tried and true characters, Jay and Silent Bob with Jay and Silent Bob Reboot. You have Dark Waters, which is a new film from Todd Haynes. You have Queen and Slim starring Daniel Kaluuya. You have A Hidden Life, which is a new film from Terrence Malick. And that's not even to mention everything that's hitting Netflix. Things like The Laundromat from Steven Soderbergh with Meryl Streep, The King with Timothée Chalamet, directed by David McCode. You have Marriage Story, which is a new Noah Baumbach film starring Adam Driver and Scarlett Johansson. So a lot of stuff coming to streaming services, and that's not even touching on everything that's we just learned was coming to Disney Plus. So a lot of content this fall But all of that out of the way, let's get into the countdown. I said 10, didn't I? I said 10, but let's start with 11 because there's a little asterisk on this one. I think it's going to be a great holiday movie. It's called Last Christmas. It's directed by Paul Feig, who you might know from Bridesmaids, Spy, and last year's A Simple Favor. It comes out November 8th. It stars Emilia Clarke, Henry Golding, Emma Thompson, and Michelle Yeoh. And it just looks like one of those. Honestly, it does kind of look like a Hallmark movie. From the trailer alone, you can kind of tell where the story's going. But it just looks so endearing, and with Feig at the helm, you're promised a little bit of an edge. So a Hallmark film with a little bit of a spicy edge to it, I'm down for it, and so I'm really looking forward to that one. We'll put that as a little asterisk on number 11. If any of these in the top 10 get shifted in release date, that's the one that would shift in. Okay, so let's get into this. Number 10, we are talking about Bombshell. It is the new film from Jay Roach, who in the beginning of his career directed really broad comedies like Meet the Parents and the Austin Powers trilogy, but as of late has kind of moved into a more political realm with Game Change or even Trumbo a few years back. Bombshell stars Charlize Theron as Megyn Kelly, Nicole Kidman as Gretchen Carlson, and Margot Robbie as a fictional associate producer at Fox News. John Lithgow is taking on the role of Roger Ailes, who, as you might know, was ousted from Fox News after allegations of sexual harassment from numerous women, including Kelly and Carlson. So this thing has an A-list cast, and if you saw the teaser trailer that dropped last week, I think it was, it's just a really well-crafted tease, and definitely, a lot has been made about how much Charlize Theron's face has been changed to look like Megyn Kelly. That's all well and good, but I'm just really interested to see how Roach approaches this type of material that is so recent, and how he turns it into a feature film. So going from there into number 9. Number 9 is Goldfinch. This is one of the releases that is coming up pretty soon. It releases on 9/13. It also stars Nicole Kidman. Sarah Paulson is in there. Finn Wolfhard from Stranger Things and It, as well as Ansel Elgort. This is based on a novel that I haven't read, and I don't know much about the story other than the brief synopsis that is on websites and has been released by the studio. But this is directed by John Crowley, and this is his follow-up to 2015's Brooklyn. And Brooklyn was just one of my favorite movies that year. If you haven't seen it, definitely give it some time. It's well worth it. It's just a lovely little movie, and I'm anxious to see what this guy does, and with this being his follow-up, I'm really excited to see where the Goldfinch takes us. So that's number 9. Let's move on to number 8. Number 8 is Knives Out. It is the new film from Rian Johnson. I'll say this up front, I was not a huge fan of Rian Johnson's entry in the Star Wars saga. The Last Jedi was definitely not my favorite, but I have liked everything else that Rian Johnson's done, whether it be Brick or The Brothers Bloom or Looper. All of those are fantastic films that I've loved and would recommend to anybody. So the fact that he has a new kind of original whodunit coming out that he wrote and directed, I'm really excited for. That's not to mention the insane cast this thing has lined up. Just starting from the top, you have Daniel Craig, Chris Evans, Ana de Armas, Jamie Lee Curtis, Toni Collette, Don Johnson, Michael Shannon, Lakeith Stanfield, Catherine Langford, and Christopher Plummer. So this thing is stacked with talent, and I think even though I may not have appreciated Rian Johnson's perspective on the Star Wars franchise and how he crafted that story for this new trilogy, I think he definitely has a good sense of how to write characters really well, and write quirky characters, and write edgy dialogue, and just put these characters in situations that we want to see play out. So I'm really excited for Knives Out, considering the plot and story that is going into this one. So yeah, Knives Out is number 8. Let's go on to number 7. And this is where things get a little sticky with this list, because this is where I have my first Netflix original film. there are a lot of Netflix original movies getting theatrical releases prior to their arrival on the streaming service this fall. And there are two actually on my list. This is the first of two. And so at number 7 is My Name is Dolomite. It is a return for Eddie Murphy to the big screen, to a feature film, and to just big comedy, which is exciting enough in its own right. But this one is directed by Craig Brewer, who did Hustle and Flow, Black Snake Moan, and it will be released in limited theatrical release on October 4th, and then will premiere on Netflix on October 25th. So yeah, really excited for this one. Like I said, Eddie Murphy is back, and he is portraying a real-life legend. His name was Rudy Ray Moore. He was a comedy and rap pioneer who proved naysayers wrong when his basically his hilarious alter ego, Dolomite, the name from the title, became a 1970s blaxploitation phenomenon. And like I said, directed by Craig Brewer, and will be released in theaters a couple weeks before it arrives on Netflix. So at number 6 we have Ad Astra. It is the latest from James Gray, who did The Lost City of Z and We Own the Night from 2007. Joaquin Phoenix and Mark Wahlberg were in that one, so you might remember that one. He's kind of done some smaller movies since then. But him and Brad Pitt have been trying to work together for a long time, and so this is finally their collaboration together. Ad Astra is a sci-fi space exploration type movie, and I'm a sucker just for that type of movie in general. So to have a director who has a unique and original voice paired with one of the biggest movie stars today, and obviously Brad Pitt's on a bit of a hot streak after Once Upon a Time in Hollywood this summer. It comes out in just a few weeks, September 20th, so really excited to see how Ad Astra turns out. All right, at number 5 is probably what I would say is the smallest movie on my list. It is called Honey Boy. If you haven't seen the trailer, definitely go watch it. It is directed by Alma Harrell, but kind of more notably here, it was inspired by the life of Shia LaBeouf, and it was written by Shia LaBeouf. And in this movie, Shia plays essentially what his father was to him as he grew up in the industry as a child actor. And just the approach to this one looks pretty insane, pretty unique, and I'm just, I grew up watching Shia on screen from Even Stevens through the Transformers and into this phase of kind of what is he doing now. So, you're hearing a lot of good stuff about Shia right now with Peanut Butter Falcon out there. I haven't actually got to see that one yet, but I'm really looking forward to it. But I'm also really looking forward to Honey Boy. It opens in limited release on 11/8, so definitely check out that trailer, and if it looks like it's up your alley, definitely seek it out when it opens in a city or in a theater near you. Going on to number 4, it is the second of the 2 Netflix films I'd mentioned earlier. If you've been paying attention to Netflix original films at all and the hype around them or kind of the conversation around them, you know that Martin Scorsese has a new film and that it is going straight to Netflix. The Irishman, which is the movie we're talking about, it's based around a book and is about a guy who was kind of a hitman for Jimmy Hoffa. It stars Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, Joe Pesci, among a star-studded cast, but you have those 3 together. It's worth seeing, for that alone. But it will come to theaters in a limited release. There's the whole thing with the big movie chains not willing to show Netflix movies unless Netflix adds them to the streaming service so much time later. But if it'll come to a big theater near you, it kind of remains to be seen right now. But it's opening in limited release on November 1st, and then will arrive on Netflix on November 27th. And we learned this week that the Irishman, is also 3.5 hours long. So that might be even a bigger deterrence for theaters to show them because they're not going to get that many shows out of it. But it's a new Scorsese movie, and it's a reunion with De Niro and Pesci, and you add Pacino in there for good measure, and that's a must-see. So that's number 4 on my list. Let's go on to number 3. Number 3 is actually what comes out next week. It is the second part to director Andy Muschietti's massive epic adaptation of Stephen King's novel. If you saw part 1 in 2017, I'm sure you're anxious to see part 2. I had a couple, nitpicks with part 1, but I just loved this idea of this grandiose, epic horror movie. and It Chapter 2 looks to have an even more aspirational just scale to it and features the losers grown up 27 years later, and you have James McAvoy, Jessica Chastain, Bill Hader, among many others playing these grown-up versions of the losers. At 10 minutes short of 3 hours, I'm really looking forward to seeing how Muschietti closes out this adaptation. So It Chapter 2 is my number 3. All right, top 2, here we go. Number 2, I struggled with these. I didn't know which one to put at the top, which one to go and runner-up. But as I mentioned earlier, I wasn't the biggest fan of Rian Johnson's The Last Jedi. And so, not for those reasons, but just because that kind of deflated my anticipation for the last final chapter in Star Wars, I went ahead and put The Rise of Skywalker at number 2. J.J. Abrams returns to close out this new trilogy that was produced by Disney once they bought Star Wars from George Lucas. Everyone's returning, Daisy Ridley, John Boyega, Oscar Isaac. All the main players are back. They're going on a quest. Billy D. Williams is back as Lando. I mean, it seems like a finale to a trilogy that seems to be checking all the boxes that you could want. But we'll see. I'm definitely excited for Star Wars. I'm a huge Star Wars fan in general and can't wait to see what J.J. Abrams does with it. It's definitely a cautious optimism. Okay, so here we go. Number 1, I am just so psyched to see Joaquin Phoenix in a big comic book movie directed by Todd Phillips. It's The Joker. I can't wait to see The Joker. I'm a huge Batman fan, but this is going to be a departure from anything we've seen in the DCEU. It's not a part of the DCEU, but it is a DC movie. And Todd Phillips, if you're not familiar with his work, this guy has done, he did Road Trip, but then he did Old School and Starsky and Hutch, and then did the Hangover trilogy and Due Date and War Dogs. And so if Todd Phillips' work, he's always kind of had this nasty little edge to his comedy. It's always been a little bit dark, and so that lends itself perfectly to a Joker movie. This thing looks twisted, it looks epic, it looks like it's drawing from Taxi Driver, King of Comedy, all these different 70s sources that just are painted across the screen, and Phoenix looks like he is just, as always, fully immersed in this role. And I can't wait to see how this thing turns out. I haven't read the script. I heard it's online. I haven't read it. I'm waiting for October 4th to see Joker on the big screen. And I can't wait. That is my top 10 most anticipated films for the fall of 2019. A lot of good stuff to look forward to. I'm sorry if anybody is, upset about the exclusion of Cats, but I'm allergic. I just can't do it. I don't know. So we'll leave that off there. But a lot of good stuff to look forward to. Be sure to check out all these films we've discussed. Be sure to let me know in the comments if there's anything that I didn't mention that you're looking forward to, what you agree with, don't agree with, all that good stuff. And while you're commenting away, be sure to like and subscribe. Hit the little notification bell. You'll get a notification every time we put up a new video, which we try to do every week, because we try to review the biggest release of the week here at Movie Tavern. So thankful to the Movie Tavern who lets us shoot a review of those newest releases every week. If you have a Movie Tavern theater near you, definitely check that out. Really cool experience. And also, if you want to get a written, or not a written review, but a written article of this countdown of my top 10, be sure to check out reviewsfromabed.com. I post written reviews and Blu-ray releases and all kinds of stuff over there all the time, so definitely check that out as well. But thanks again for checking out Tavern Talk by Initial Reaction. We'll be back next week with a new review, so we'll see you then. Peace. Dab on the haters. Now dab on them. Bum, 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 bum.